Today I thought I'd make a video telling you how I became disabled and then re-abled again. Okay, I was bedridden for 5 years, but now I would consider myself to be healthier than most people my age. No thanks to doctors. Okay, this is all me, baby. But a lot of people will ask about my face. This is like I just, a little bit of skincare and it's all good. This is the tail end of 10 years of struggle. Baby, give me 6 more months and I'll be looking like a champ. Okay? But really, this goes all the way back to when I was 9 years old, when I was playing on a fertilizer pile. Okay? We lived out in the country. We moved out to the country, and there was these big fertilizer piles that we thought we could play on them. Like they were, like we were sledding on it in the winter and play whatever games. And then my face got this really terrible, terrible rash. Okay? And then I went to the doctor, and they were like, oh, turns out you can't play on fertilizer. So then throughout my childhood, I would have repeats of these symptoms every so often. Every single time I had something fun to do. I low-key think my mom was putting fertilizer in my food. But anyway, I would throw up a lot and like whatever. Then fast forward, I also had really bad eczema on my legs throughout my childhood. And one time I had like my arm in the middle of school just started hurting. And like they didn't know why. They put a brace on me for 6 weeks, but like I'd never hurt my arm. It just started hurting. And they x-rayed it and didn't see anything wrong with it, but they just still put a brace on it, okay? So then by the time I was 15, I started having like really bad stomach pains. And I would tell my mom, I'm having these really bad stomach pains. She'd be like, everybody's stomach hurts, Catherine. Okay, but it would be like so bad that I would just like lay down flat on the floor for hours because it was the only thing I felt like I could do. And I did go to the doctor one time and they didn't find anything on that initial visit. So then I didn't get any more doctor visits until after I was an adult. Okay. So then when I was like 18, I started going to the doctor a lot because like I was always having these stomach pains. I would throw up like often. And sometimes I was passing out. I was having like these weird symptoms, or not actually passing out, but feeling like I was gonna pass out. I'd get really dizzy and have to sit down. So I kept going to the doctor, and every time I go to the doctor, they'd be like, you probably have anxiety. Come back if it gets worse. Maybe you have IBS. Come back if it gets worse. Like, right? All these different things. So after a year of going like every month, finally they were like, maybe we will send you on for additional testing, okay? Around that time, I remember I went to my mom's house to visit, and I would get up in the middle of every meal throwing up. And she was like, oh, you actually are sick. I was like shivering and whatever. And she's like, because she had moved away as soon as I graduated high school, right? So I was living alone, going to college, trying to pay the bills, and really sick at this point. And everybody kept acting like I was just making it up. I lost so much weight. I was so skinny that people were like making up a rumor saying that I was on drugs or something, but like I wasn't. I was throwing up everything I ate. So finally they started actually sending me in for testing. First they sent me to a cardiologist who did a bunch of tests, and they were like, your heart is fine, but something's really wrong with you. So I think you should go to a neurologist. Okay, so then I went to a neurologist who did a bunch of tests, and they were like, neurologically you're fine, but there's definitely something wrong with you. And I think you should go to a gastroenterologist. So then finally I went to a gastroenterologist, and she was like, I think you have Crohn's disease. And I was like, oh, finally, somebody has a suggestion for what this could be. Okay, she's like, so I need to stick a camera down your throat and a camera up your butt. Okay, and then we'll find out for sure if you have Crohn's disease. And I was like, all right, great. And then I go home and I look up Crohn's disease and I start reading like the symptoms. And it's literally a checklist of everything I said. And I'm like, why did it take 4 doctors when like this is such a textbook case and it says this isn't even that rare? Like, okay. But anyway, so I go to the doctor, I get the scopes, and they're like, you definitely do in fact have Crohn's disease. Also, somewhere around that time, I had like a lump in my breast. So I went and they gave me a mammogram, and they couldn't see anything with the mammogram because they were like, you're too young, your breast tissue is too dense. So then they gave me an ultrasound, and they were like, nope, just a lump. Okay, but that'll come back too. So This is like when I was around 19, 20 years old. So this was like 2000, 2001. Obamacare didn't exist yet. I was on my parents' insurance, and I got to stay on it because I was a full-time college student. I was supposed to go away to college, but my mom convinced me to go to community college instead to save money. And so that's what I was doing. But then because I took so long for them to like help me get well, I had to go through so many different doctors and so many different appointments before anybody checked for Crohn's disease. Like that process, it wasn't until the middle of my second year of college when they finally gave me the scopes. And I've been trying the whole year and a half. So I ended up dropping out that last semester, that second semester of my second year, because I was so sick that like I was throwing up constantly. I had lost so much weight. I was down to like 120 pounds, and I'm 5'7". Okay, so I was really skinny, and finally I thought I would be able to, like, I knew I would lose my parents' insurance for a little bit, but I thought because it was like at the end of the semester, if I signed back up in the fall, I could get back on my parents' insurance. I didn't understand that that's not how it worked. Like, I was losing my parents' insurance forever. Nobody told me either, okay? So I could not, you couldn't join back into college and get back on your parents' insurance. Once you were off, you were off. And now I couldn't get my own insurance. I tried to get like insurance through the school, but I couldn't because it wouldn't cover the Crohn's disease. So then I tried to get like my own insurance that I paid for, and they wouldn't cover it because I had a pre-existing condition. They said if I got insurance, it would be $500 a month, and then like without covering the Crohn's disease, and after like 2 years they would cover the Crohn's disease or something. But $500 a month at that time in 2001, like my rent was $340. Like I didn't make more than $340 plus $500. That was all my income. Okay, so I was like, well, that's not gonna work. So I went to the Medicaid office because I was like, well, I'm a poor person with a disease, I'll get Medicaid. And they were like, no, you can't get Medicaid. You're 19 now, you're an adult. And they're like, do you have any kids? I was like, no. Are you pregnant? No. They're like, Medicaid's only for pregnant people or people with kids. It's like, so you want me to go get knocked up as a 19-year-old to be able to get my own health care? That doesn't sound right. So anyway, I tried all these things. I could not get reinsured. So I ended up going back off Crohn's disease within about a year of starting to take it, because it was also like $500 a month at the time, which that was all my money. Okay, so I just a lot and went to work. At the time, I did inventory. I was like a crew leader for this inventory company, and we would drive around the state like to different stores. Like we did a lot of Walgreens and CVS's and stuff like that, Dollar Generals, and we would count their stores, and I would throw up so many times every day that they just knew. Like I would just go like this in the back, and they would pull the van over so that I could get out and throw up on the side of the highway, and then I would get in and we would go again. And like sometimes in the store, I would just start chucking to the back towards the bathroom, and like all my coworkers would yell, "It's the Crohn's! Move out of the way! It's the Crohn's!" And new people would always be like, why do you come to work if you're throwing up? Because I throw up every day of my life. So like, I have to work. But I still advanced up through the company and was like the on-site supervision at most of the inventories that I was at. I would, set it up with the crew leader and whatever. But then while I worked at that job, I ended up getting knocked up. I was 22 then, but we had already talked about eloping, which was kind of crazy, but my mom was trying to marry me off to this like 30-year-old man. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. I'd always had this like weird attraction. My ex-husband, let me tell you, he ended up growing up in the house that my parents lived in when they were first married. And so like it was next door to my aunt. So when we were kids, like he hit on me when we were kids at the park, and I didn't know it was him. Like I met him later completely separately and did not know it was the same guy till I went to drop him off, and like that invisible string, I was like, that's my husband. Anyway, we had a baby and got married. So getting pregnant like kind of put me into remission. I stopped having issues with my health during that pregnancy. It was great. I do get really huge, and like I was borderline gestational diabetes, and like my son, he was only 7 pounds 13 ounces, but he was born almost a month early. So like that's a big baby, okay? Because he was born at 36 and a half weeks. Like they were like, he might have to go to the NICU, you know, he's a preemie, and then he comes out full size. That was when I was 23, and that same year we bought a house and got married, and I had my son, and I was like, all right, setting up the little family dream. This was 2005, okay, so before we had the stock market crash and everything. Technically, the house, I didn't buy it, my mom bought it, and we were paying the mortgage because it was a cheap little starter house. You could do that back then, okay? I live in a affordable part of town, which that saved me later when I was on disability because I could afford that mortgage. That house was only $60,000, so it was like a $300-something mortgage. It was like basically like our apartment plus a basement, but then we also had a big backyard. It was walkable to the school, so it was great, okay? So we moved in there, and over the next couple of years, my health started to kind of like I started to get these, like, I would have all these cysts, okay? I would have them in my breast. Remember, I had gone and gotten that thing, and I would have them, like, in my armpits, and sometimes on my thighs, too, like, just like a hard lump. And, like, nobody ever seemed to know what it was. Sometimes they would say it was, like, a staph infection and give me, like, an antibiotic. Sometimes they would just be like, it's just a harmless cyst, and it's fine. But, like, it was weird. I kept getting them. I did not think they were all related, honestly. Like, it sounds like you're probably like, duh, how would you not know it's related? But they look so different in every part of my body, and like they would come up like separately, like months apart from each other, just one at a time, that like I didn't think it was the same thing, because like in my armpit it was really hard and didn't hurt at all, and it was skin color, and then like on my thigh it would be like more red and painful, so I thought it was like a different thing, okay? Anyway, but I know now it was all the same thing, okay? So I ended up having surgery on my armpit. You can see, like, my arm is not okay. I ended up having surgery on that armpit in 2007. The first time, they just removed a little cyst to see what it was. Biopsy it, make sure it wasn't anything bad. And they were like, yeah, you're fine. Okay, but the healing process from that was awful. I had this huge, like, swelling, and they were like, no, that's normal. I think they damaged my lymph nodes then. I have not had feeling in the back of my arm since that time, okay? So I don't think they did that surgery. I think that started a lot of my problems. But they were like, no, there's nothing wrong with you there, okay? Because then in 2009, I had a recurrence of the same thing in the same spot right on top of the scar. And I was like, what was the point? So then they did another surgery to take out that one, okay? Because now it was getting painful. But still, I'm like, this doesn't seem to be doing much. And they still were like, they didn't tell me what it was. Later, I found out they put in my records what it was, but nobody informed me at this time what they thought was going on, okay? But then I ended up getting pregnant again and having my younger son in 2010. And when I had that baby, they messed me up in that delivery. I don't know exactly what was wrong. First of all, it took them like almost an hour to give me the epidural because they couldn't find my spine. I don't know, there's like parts of my spine that are fused that aren't supposed to be, but she couldn't find a place to stick it in. So she just kept like stabbing me with the needle all over my spine, trying to find anywhere that there was an opening. There was blood on the wall 10 feet away from me when they finished giving me my epidural, okay? And I had back pain for years after I had my son. So I assume that it had something to do with that. Okay, and honestly, after both, my recovery after that one was so much harder than my first one. Like, I went to the doctor, I'm like, I know I have some type of infection. He's like, no, you're healing great. I was like, I can't be healing great. Like, something is wrong with me. Wait, no, that was after the first one. Honestly, after both of them, there was different problems. But the second one was so much worse than the first one that, like, I was laid out for, like, weeks. I remember, like, crying. My back hurt so bad after the second one, okay? I ripped open both times, and I think where they stitched me, they fucked me up. Like, they crossed something they shouldn't have, okay? So I was in a lot of pain after that as well. But generally, I was getting through, like, you know, I had a lot of, like, stomach pain day to day and, like, general pain, but I thought I was I thought my health was mostly okay, even though I was gaining weight. Like, I did not lose weight very well after these pregnancies. But you know, you get in survival mode and you just kind of dissociate and you just do what you have to do because you got bills to pay and you got diapers to change. And it's just, it is what it is, right? So I just powered through. But then my ex-husband and I separated when my younger son was 6 months old. And so I was working and had the kids by myself half the time. And when I realized I could do it all by myself, that made me realize I should have already gone back and finished college, because I was like about to turn 30, and I still hadn't finished college because I don't know if I mentioned it, but I had to drop out of college. I ended up not going back because of how I had to work, because I didn't have insurance, right? So I was like, I should go back and finish school. So I ended up reuniting with my ex-husband, and I was like, if we could each live off of one income separately, we can live off of one income together, and then I'll do some type of part-time work, but then we won't have daycare expense. So like, it will work out. My ex-husband was like, yeah, sure. I was like, I'll go back. I could get my business degree, and then I can make so much more money. You know, we'll be set. But then after I already quit my job and started, my ex-husband was like, what do you mean? That I wasn't going to pay all the bills? I'm still only paying half the bills. So he expected me to pay half the bills without working. So I started doing home sales, like, you know, those old romance parties where you would go have like the adult toys, but it was mostly like lotions and body sprays and like stuff like that. And it was really fun. We would go have a party, and like I would do a little demonstration where I explained the products and like how to use them and play games, and then like people would buy stuff. And I got really good at that, actually. Like, I ended up starting to make more money than my husband was making after a while. That helped me learn a lot of skills that would help me later too. Because I learned all about internet marketing and SEO and everything to get my ads out there, so that I would, because the only way I got good was once I got into the rich neighborhood, which I didn't know those people. I got those people through Google ads, and then word of mouth advertising after I had a few parties with them, spread through their neighborhoods. Those boomers will spend a lot of money on toys, okay? And I think it's the older Gen X. Anyway, we're doing this. I'm going to school. Everything's fine. And then, bam, I end up in the hospital, okay? Because I was having these like really severe pains for like a full 8 hours. And I was like, I need to go to the hospital and get checked out. I didn't have any insurance at the time, but like my pain was so severe for like an entire day. I went, and then I was hospitalized for like 4 days. But while I was sitting in the hospital, I won an award. Like, on my little team sales that I was doing, I booked the most parties from my hospital bed, probably because they had all me Dilaudid, which tweaks me out. So I won. Like, I was going to be featured on the award stage in Vegas. And before you get mad at me for like running an MLM where you have to set those kind of ones, you didn't have to sign up a ton of people under you. I had like 2 or 3 people on my team just because they wanted to, but like I was making money off my own personal sales. But then my ex-husband, I had the tickets bought and everything for Vegas. He backed out of going on the trip, and like we were really broke at the time, and I was embarrassed to show up by myself, and like also poor. Because I wouldn't be able to go with the other people, and so I just didn't go either. Anyway, I ended up in the hospital again later that year. That's when I woke up throwing up poop. Okay, at 5 in the morning, I threw up, and I was like, that's poop. That's not right. So I woke up my husband. I was like, I just threw up poop, and he's like, you probably just threw up too hard. I was like, I've never heard of anybody throwing up too hard and poop coming out of their mouth. That's not a thing. And I was like, I think I have another bowel obstruction, because I had just been hospitalized, 6 months earlier. I was like, you need to take me to the hospital. I was like, I was having pains all last night. And he's like, you better have something wrong with you. Anyway, he drops me off. And I did, in fact, have something wrong with me. Like, it took them hours of leaving me writhing in excruciating pain at the hospital. I was screaming so loud in my room that 3 different times, random people came in from the hallway that weren't my care team to ask if I was okay and I needed help. And I'm like, I'm just in pain, and I don't know. They're not giving me medicine. I don't know why. I think they thought I was like a seeker and faking. I think at some point somebody put that in my chart when I came in when I was young and like in pain. because they have always treated me like I am just there to like bother them. Even when I wouldn't come in for like a year at a time. Like, is this how addicts act? I don't think it is, okay? But anyway, I digress. They were just like, till they did a CAT scan. And then they were like, oh, your intestines are actually going to explode like maybe any minute. It was Sunday night at 8 p.m. by then. I came in at 5 in the morning, by the way. Remember, it was like, well, I think it was like 7 p.m. when I had surgery. It was like 5 when they did the CAT scan, when they read the CAT scan. And they were like, if we don't do surgery tonight, your intestines are probably going to explode before tomorrow morning. So we have to call people in from home. So they called them in and then did my surgery. And then they had me on like a pain pump. And I refused a lot at that time because it tweaked me out so bad the time before. I don't like that. So they put me on morphine and I got them to give me a heating pad for my back because I kept like having these pains. That works way better. I'm telling you, as somebody who's gone through a lot of pain, heat, so much more effective for pain than this stuff they put in you. And because of that, I got out of the hospital 2 days sooner than they expected me to, okay? I got right into that physical therapy and was doing it, but I was still in the hospital the entire week because they expected me to be there more than a week. And I had to learn how to walk up and down stairs again. You use all your stomach muscles because they cut me all the way from like the top of my belly all the way to like almost my pubic bone. So all through those muscles, and they took out 20 centimeters of my intestine, and then they sewed me back up and went around my belly button like a little keyhole. So like for a couple days, I couldn't even like sit up. They would have to like use a sheet to like pull me up. But then finally I started walking around and I got off and I did a party again a week later. A very successful one, might I add. It was a record-setting party for me at the time. Also, that entire week that I was in the hospital was finals week. So I was in college still, right? That was my last semester at the community college because there was a couple classes that I could take at the community college, but I was really going to the university. But I could take a couple of my prerequisites that I had never finished there. And so that's what I was doing. I was doing like a dual enrollment, but I had to finish those for my classes in January. Like it was a requirement and I didn't take the final. And they were going to be closed for 2 months for like Christmas. And the next time they were going to open was the week that classes started. So if I didn't take my finals that week, like I was going to have to drop one of my classes that I was registered for in January. And then I didn't know if they would have any classes that worked with my schedule because I was working around the fact that I had a 2-year-old at home who I had taken out of daycare. And I was surgery and all these things, like, so I just needed to get this final done. So I was on heavy painkillers at the time and like whatever, but I arranged, they were open for like 3 more days before Christmas. I was like, I'm going to come in and take my final. I went there, man, it was, I swear it was in another language. Like it was like, this is not, I think you gave me the test from a different class. I don't think we've ever done any of this. Okay, it was business calculus, and I was like, this is really hard. It's been 10 years since I took college algebra before that class too. And I sat there with that final for like 4.5 hours, like staring at it, and I ended up turning it in half blank, which usually I'm the person who like turns a test in first. So I was like crying, bawling, because I was like, there's no way I passed that test, and now I'm not gonna be able to take my test. But my teacher, he had always curbed tests, and he gave me a B on that final and a B in the class. That would have been the first test I ever failed. I got 99th percentile on every standardized test I took every single year of school. So like, that was cool. Because I only got 40% on that test. So this is December 2012. I know because Sandy Hook happened while I was in the hospital. Okay, you know what? There's always, now that I do astrology, I know that that's why. There's always like a major disaster every time I'm in the hospital. So like I can time them by like, oh, that's when Osama bin Laden died. Oh, that was the Sandy Hook time. Okay. So anyway, I was watching Sandy Hook from the hospital, got out, did my party, went to school. So I'm at university. I'm going to the doctors trying to figure out like why I keep getting like so sick. They have me on new medications. I think this is around the time they started me on Remicade, okay? Oh, I was able to get Medicaid again after I had my kids, and I did have different insurances throughout the years from my employers. Honestly, Medicaid, way easier. At least Illinois Medicaid was way easier to deal with. It used to be. It's getting bad now because they've allowed it to become like HMO privatized. But it used to be so easy to deal with. They would just pay for whatever you billed them for. Now they don't pay for anything. Anyway, so they put me on Remicade for a while, which you go to the hospital and you get an infusion. Like you have to sit there for like 4 hours while they give you this IV medication. And I would have to take my son with me. Sometimes he was like 2 years old and he would watch TV on the room, or I'd bring my iPad for him. And then I would get really sick for a couple of days after the infusion, but then I would feel generally better for a few weeks, and then I would have to go back and get it again. So I was doing that, and then that year of school, my dad also died. Since I went back to school, I was hospitalized twice, and then my dad died. So each time I missed like a whole week trying to go back and finishing college, because my dad lived in Tennessee, so I had to travel to another state to go to his funeral. I had to ride with my mom the whole way there, who then was very upset that his funeral wasn't about her. Weird. They'd been divorced for 20 years and he was remarried, but okay. Anyway, I missed an infusion or something because, there was a lot going on. And so I had to go back to the doctor to get reauthorized, and my doctor had moved and there was a new doctor there, and he thought I should go on a different medication. So then I switched to like an oral medication. But really, after that surgery, my health just kept going down and down and down. Those cysts I talk about, those were way worse. Like, most of my pain came from the fact that I had these never-ending cysts, and both my armpits were, like, full of just, like, these, like, huge cysts. And I would get them, like, in the creases of my thigh or, like, under my boobs. And, like, nobody knew why I was getting them. And I was like, why? This hurts. By then, I did get diagnosed with what that was. It was hidradenitis suppurativa. And I ended up creating, like, a support group on Facebook for people who had it. Well, first I joined another one, but like I felt like the ones that were existing, like everybody was nobody was allowed to post pictures, and also they were kind of bullies. Like I got kicked out of one, so I made my own, and that ended up being important later too. Okay, so anyway, we're at like 2013, 2014 now, okay? And I'm like going to the doctor all the time, trying to figure out, because I'm about to finish school and I want to be able to go travel the world. I'm getting my degree in supply chain management, where most supply chain jobs are like 25 to 50% travel. Like I'm planning on going to China and writing contracts. They would not really ever give me pain medicine, so I was in like high levels of pain all the time, and it made me, honestly, I was mean, I was bitchy, because everything hurt. I couldn't sleep at night. I would wake up like multiple times a night because I was in so much pain all the time. But the doctors, when I would go, they would just be like, yeah, you're sick, but they would like never do anything. And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do for this to stop happening? And the only thing they would ever say was lose weight, right? So that year I lost 80 pounds. Because I had gained weight from when I had kids, and I had just been creeping up, and I had never, being sick and everything. So I lost 80 pounds that year. And I also quit drinking, okay? I was like, all right, I'll quit drinking, lose 80 pounds. We're going to take this really seriously. Did not help. And then the doctors seemed to be out of ideas. Like that was their main idea, was that, no, you just lose weight and then you're well again. And I'm like, okay, but I lost weight. And they're like, well, you gotta quit drinking. I'm like, I did. They're like, we don't believe you. So I was having trouble. Like I needed to do an internship at the end of my degree, but I was like in so much pain. I was like, if I do an internship, they're not gonna pass me because I'm not gonna be able to complete it. And like, you can't just be calling in every day as an intern, and so like, I was like, let me just wait a little bit. Let the doctors figure this out. I'm sure I'll be well in a few months. I've been sick my whole life. It'll be fine. And then I'll go to work. But it didn't happen. And people kept telling me to apply for disability. They had been for a while. But I was like, I'm not disabled. I just went to college. I'm going to go travel the world. Okay. And then like, I found out that if I didn't apply for Social Security that month, or like within a few months that I was going to lose my ability to, because you had to have worked 5 years out of the last 10. And because I hadn't been working, I had quit my outside job while I was like self-employed and I wasn't paying Social Security taxes. I don't know, maybe I was filing taxes. But honestly, it didn't seem like, I don't think I was. Because you do that separately, right? I just paid my income tax. Anyway, I had to apply right then. So I applied and they actually approved me really fast. I didn't have to go to a judge or anything because I was so bad by that point. They were like, oh yeah, you're a disabled lady. Which honestly was hard for me to hear because I had always thought of myself as like so highly abled that I'm like, what do you mean I'm disabled? No, I'm Superman. I can do anything. So anyway, I ended up being sick and I started being at home and I was like, well, maybe this is kind of nice. I'll have a little bit of time off to get well. And then in a year, I'll be able to go back to work and everything will be fine. And I got this big back paycheck that was like $18,000. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So I went on a couple of vacations, which were very cheap, by the way. I know how to travel on a shoestring budget. That's one thing that, even though I'm poor, I'm good at being poor because I'm smart and I know how to find deals and I know how to like do things for free by like taking a little bit more hassle. So I went for a 2-week trip around the country and I didn't even spend $2,000. My mom though, she was like, you don't have money to be traveling. You can't afford that. You have to pay your bill. But my bill, like I said, my house, the mortgage was only like $300 and something a month. Like my Social Security payment was high enough that I followed the 30% rule with my mortgage on my Social Security, at least in the beginning, before everything got really expensive, because my taxes and insurance ended up going up. So by the end, my mortgage was like $500, but still I was right about at that 30% rule. But everything else was so expensive that even at the 30% rule, like that low amount of money was hard. So at first it was okay. I separated from my husband, by the way, permanently at this point. Like as soon as I started getting my Social Security payment, I got him out of the house because there was I don't need to go into all that, but trust. Okay, so he was gone. And I was like, this is fine. I can pay these bills with my disability. And then in a year or two, I will be well and I will be able to go work and it will be good. But I actually just got sicker and sicker and sicker. I was trying the different things. Honestly, I don't remember the orders that the doctor had me try, all the different things, but I was on a lot of different medication. And at some point during that time, I started on methotrexate. I think that was around 2016. Methotrexate is a really strong chemotherapy drug that you inject yourself with. And I would give it to myself every 2 weeks, I think. Or no, once a week. Okay? So I have to put it into my stomach. And then I would throw up for like 4 days. And then I would have like 2 or 3 good days. Actually, I started the methotrexate, I think, before I even separated from my husband. So I was on this when I kicked him out. But I was like, no, I'll do it myself. I don't care. Okay? Because I thought this methotrexate was going to be a miracle for me. And it was at first. Like, it helped. Like, all my abscesses and cysts went away. My armpits started to heal up. And, like, a lot of things got better. But also, I was throwing up 5 days a week, and like I was so incredibly weak and sick in other ways that like I was less functionable than when I just had the Crohn's disease. And at some point, I went to the doctor, and they were like, "You're in remission. Your methotrexate has put you in remission." And I was like, "What do you mean I'm in remission? Like I can't get out of bed?" And they're like, "Yeah, but your blood work now, you don't have any inflammation." I'm like, that's because I'm dying and my body can't produce inflammation. Like, what do you mean? That's not remission. And they're like, I was like, yeah, I don't think. So I was like, I ended up going off methotrexate. I was on it 2 different times. I went on it for a year and then I went off of it for a little while and then I went back on it. And the second time, it didn't even help me, okay? The second time, I just got worse every single time I injected myself. And that is when everything really, really, really started going downhill, okay? By now, we're around like 2018. Okay, so I'm injecting myself, and every time, like my face started getting redder and redder and redder. Like I looked like I was gonna explode. And I was in so much pain, I couldn't move. They had put me on painkillers at this point, but like, even with the painkillers, like I would take 10 milligrams of hydrocodone every 4 hours, and like I would be counting down the time until I could take another one. Not because I was like tweaker, because I was like, it was only about 2 hours that it really helped with the pain, okay? But like I couldn't take it sooner than that. And then they turned that to a Schedule 2, so that it made it harder to get. I would have to go to the doctor and get like a paper every single month, and my doctor was 40 minutes away. And so I had asked them to switch me down to Tramadol, which is probably a mistake. That's probably why I got worse. Because I thought, well, that's a weaker one. That's a Schedule 3, but then I don't have to go get the authorization every month, right? So I was taking 100 milligrams of Tramadol every 8 hours, which is like the max dose that you can take. And I was taking that for like 3 years. And I think that gave me a lot of nerve damage, because it's known to do that. And because like, I remember one day I was sitting in my bed and I felt like I was sitting on my phone and it was vibrating. Like somebody was calling me and I was sitting on my phone. That's the sensation I had. Like I felt that in my leg, and it would stop, and it would start, and it would stop. So I start looking for my phone. I can't find my phone anywhere. Finally, I see my phone, and it's sitting next to me, like over, not touching me. And I'm like, and then my leg starts vibrating again. So I start looking again, like what is in here that vibrates? That is like, I'm like looking under where I'm sitting. I can't find anything. It happens again a couple days later. I finally realized my leg was vibrating internally. Like I was the vibrator. And I was like, that's weird. So I went to the doctor, and she was like, my old doctor had retired and it was replaced by a new doctor. And she was like, I think that's just normal. I was like, okay. Like, you don't think I should see a neurologist? She's like, no, probably not. I was like, oh, okay. All right. So then I also started like falling asleep while I was standing up during this time, or like just randomly, like I would fall asleep in and out. And like I was so weak that it started being really difficult for me to even get up to take a shower or cook dinner or like do anything. I went on a trip in 2019, and that's when I realized how much sicker I was, because at home I laid in bed all the time anyway, and I always was in pain. So like I didn't notice how bad the fatigue had gotten until I tried to, because before I could go do a fun day, but then like I would just need like 3 or 4 days to recover afterwards. But this time I couldn't even muster up enough energy to have a fun day. Like I would have like I just kept going to sleep at my friends' houses and like wishing I was dead. And I was like, okay, now I accept that I'm disabled. This is real disabled. I can't fucking move, okay? So at this point, I was like, I need to start going back to the doctors and figure out what's going on. I had gone off the methotrexate for a while because I was trying to get onto a different medication because it made me so sick with the side effects that I was like, but my insurance wouldn't approve another medication, Humira, until I wasn't medically in remission anymore. Because, they had said I was in remission, and I was like, no, I wasn't. So I had to get my body out of remission, and I was like, I think this must be out of remission because I feel terrible. So I'm going to go back to the doctor now, and I think I'll be able to get Humira this time. Because Humira is a lot more expensive than methotrexate. Like, it's like $2,000 per shot, and you take like either one a week or one every other week. Where the methotrexate is like a few dollars per shot. So they like to give you the methotrexate, which used to be what they gave people for cancer. It's like a mini dose of what they used to give people for cancer chemotherapy. But the side effects are so bad, they stopped giving it to people for cancer mostly, but they still give it to poor people with autoimmune diseases. Anyway, so like maybe I'll be able to get approved for the Humira this time. And I made a bunch of appointments to go back to the doctor, and then COVID happened, okay? So everything shut down. They canceled all of my appointments. I had all these appointments for scopes, and like I was gonna get tested for narcolepsy because I had, have like a sleep study and see what was going on, why I was falling asleep, like driving and standing up, and like also I was having really bad eye infections at the time. I was having my skin was still really bad. I was having tons of problems, and I just But it was also hard for me to make it to all these appointments because I felt so sick all the time that like getting up the energy to get ready and go to an appointment, that took away all the energy I had to feed my kids for that day. Like my entire, like all my energy was waking my kids up in the morning to get them to school and then fixing them dinner. Like that was my entire focus. And now they were home all the time too. And I couldn't go to the doctor. But I mean, they're older, so it's not like, you know, they were able to like do a lot, and they did have to do a lot of taking care of themselves because what could I do? My mom was absolutely unbearable during this time. If ever I would tell her anything, she would be like, you used to be such a better mother. Yeah, I know, because I wasn't dying then. And she would get mad at me that I couldn't make it to all the events and like do all the things that I did before. Like she had zero tolerance for pain or discomfort. And if I asked her to come over, one time I asked her to come over if she could help me with my house. And she's like, but you have to be up and working the whole time because you can't just be sitting around while we're working in your house. Okay, well then never mind. My ex-husband was constantly bitching at me too. That like, oh, you're not doing this. You haven't done this. Like, can everybody just leave me alone? And like, can somebody try to help me not die? Then anyway, right after we started lockdown, I had the worst headache of my life for like 10 days. Okay, so I'm like, what is this? I've never really been a headache person before, so why now do I have this horrible splitting like migraine type headache? So I called my doctor because I was like, you know, they say you're supposed to do that if you have the worst headache of your life. And she was like, we fired you as a patient. And I was like, what do you mean we fired you as a patient? Oh yeah, I forgot. I switched doctors at that time because the one I had was 40 minutes away, so I went to one that was closer to my house because my old doctor retired and the new one was not worth driving out the 40 minutes. Remember, she was the one who didn't care about my vibrating leg. So I was like, why am I driving 40 minutes for a lady who's like, my old doctor, I liked him, okay? So I was like, I'll just go to the one next to my house. But that lady never even sent me for blood work once, even though she had me on thyroid medication for 2 years, okay? And then at first she was really sympathetic about my pain and whatever and said she would put me on the same thing. But then she said she wasn't supposed to be giving me that much and she kept trying to cut down my doses. But like, she wouldn't tell me. She would just like cut the quantity in half. And then I went with the same instructions. And I'm like, this isn't enough. Like this isn't, the old was barely sufficient for my pain. You can't cut my quantity in half with no notice. Like I had stair-stepped down to a lower thing voluntarily because it was less of a hassle, and now you're only giving me half of it. Now I can't function. Like I am in too much pain. And so she decided that I was a seeker and kicked me out of the clinic completely during the middle of COVID. So I can't find a new doctor because nobody's seeing patients. And all my specialist appointments have been canceled. And I was like, oh, well, so I hope this headache doesn't kill me then, I guess. I don't know. Like, I wasn't trying to get anything for the headache. I wanted you to, like, scan my head and find out why I had a headache. And make sure my brain wasn't exploding. So anyway, I started ending up calling 911 a few times that summer because then I started having these reactions where, like, when I would eat, like it felt like my throat was closing and like I would have an immediate like rash on my face, like hives or something. And like, no, honestly, it was more like acne, but it came up so fast that like, I'm like, that's not normal for it to be within like 10 minutes of eating, you know? And like, and yeah, I would feel like my throat was closing and my heart would start racing really bad. And I would like feel like super bad panic attack and I would feel like I was dying. So I called 911 and they would give me like a shot of epinephrine. So then I thought, okay, well then I must have really been dying. You gave me an EpiPen. But I guess I was actually not having an allergic reaction. So anyway, since nobody here would see me or do anything, I made an appointment at Mayo Clinic in Arizona. And I know the Minnesota one is closer to me, but I thought I would have to maybe go back again in the winter. And so I was thinking ahead. I was like, Arizona. Plus, you can fly. There's direct flights from where I live to the Phoenix airport that are cheap. Like the budget Allegiant airline goes there. So I was like, all right, smart, right? So this is during Delta. This was 2021 during the Delta strain. They're not really seeing a lot of patients in person there. They were mostly doing virtual consultations. but they would screen you virtually, and then if they decided that you were sick enough, they would arrange for you to come there in person. And they were like, yeah, oh yeah, you're sick enough, lady. So I went there, and then I caught something on the plane. So when I got there, I had to quarantine for a week, and I had to extend my stay for a week. I had to do a GoFundMe to get there because you have to pay for yourself to be in a hotel. It's not like you can stay at the Mayo Clinic. You can go there, but then you have to stay in a hotel. And the only hotel that's close to it is one that's way more expensive. Like, you could stay in one that's cheaper if you stay further away, but then you'd have to like rent a car or something. And I was by myself or whatever. My mom wanted to go and stay with me. I was like, absolutely not. Absolutely fucking not. Like, so we go. I go for I had to extend my trip for an extra week. And emergency fundraise for that, and like try to change my plane tickets. I did not have COVID. We don't know what I had. And then I saw like six or seven different specialists while I was there. They changed some of my diagnoses. Oh, I didn't even tell you about the frozen shoulder that I had for 7 years in the middle there. I forgot about that. So for like 7 years, or not 7 years, it was like 2 years. 2 years, but it was like 7 years before I totally fixed it. Okay, 2 or 3 years before I went to Mayo Clinic, my shoulder had been like, I had a T-Rex arm. Okay, I had been to physical therapy, and they told me I had arthritis in my shoulder, and they had got it a little bit better, but like I could barely reach my hair to like wash it. Okay, I had a T-Rex arm on this side. For a while I couldn't close my car door. I couldn't reach to get a bag out of a drive-through window. I couldn't take money out of an ATM. Okay, that's how bad my arm was. So when I went to Mayo Clinic, they were like, well, you don't have arthritis in your shoulder. And I was like, then why doesn't it move? Okay. And they told me I had spondylitis, ankylosing spondylitis, which is like old lady humped back syndrome. So it's like arthritis in your spine. And then like, but it's not arthritis. And then they were like, unknown hip pain, because I told them like something is really wrong on my hip. I knew that. They also said my leg was pointed the wrong way, and I was like, oh. So they thought maybe I had like EDS, but I did not have that. Okay. I just had a few hypermobile joints, and so I saw all the different doctors, and really they were like, you just need to go on Humira. But they also put me on 6 months of doxycycline, and because they were putting me on doxycycline, they put me on this antifungal, so that, because girls, you know, down there, it's not good if you're on antibiotics for a long time, you'll get an infection. So they put me on this antifungal, right? And I noticed from the antifungal that they had me on that I started getting way better. So I was like, well, I didn't notice it was just from that. I just noticed I was getting way better from the treatment they were giving me. Like when I got back, I was getting way better from whatever medicine they were giving me. And then when I stopped taking it, I started getting way worse. And it was when the antifungal ran out specifically that I started getting worse. And so I was like, I think like, and my skin had started to clear up. I was like, I think some of this is like a fungal infection. Because I had, by this point, my armpits were just like ulcers. Like the cyst that had used to been there had came back when I went off the methotrexate. And then like a hair wrapped around part of it, and like the skin fell off, and it just left this big gaping hole, and it never closed for like a year or two. I just had a giant hole like this big in my arm. Like I didn't have outer skin. And they never knew what to do about it. So I'm like, I'm going to put antifungals on this and see what happens. So I started rubbing antifungals on it, and it all cleared up. No doctor ever told me to do that. Lots of doctors saw it, and they were just like, oh, does your armpit always look like that? Oh, all right. So like how are you supposed to know if a doctor doesn't tell you? If a doctor sees it and they're just like, huh. So anyway. So I started smearing it on more stuff. I'm like, I have lots of weird stuff on my body. I'm just going to put this cream on every weird thing on my body and see what happens. And they all just started going away. And I was like, okay, all right. I think I have a fungal infection. I think I have a systemic fungal infection. So I started doing research on that. And that's like a whole thing that like with like molds or like methotrexate specifically. The methotrexate that I was on 2 years. Remember a lot of this started when I was on methotrexate, causes the systemic fungal infection. And 50% of people who get it die. okay? Because they don't test you for it. And it's like this, they call it candidemia, okay? It's like a blood infection, candida in your blood. And so I started buying like bulk amounts of this antifungal cream on Amazon and like rubbing huge amounts of it on every like opening on my body so that it would hopefully get into my blood system. So like anywhere that like the skin was broken, I was rubbing this cream on it, okay? And like it worked. I started getting healthier and healthier and healthier. Now at the same time, because I had lost a lot of weight, I was active in this weight loss group on Facebook, and they ran this nutrition coaching company, and they were like, you're really smart and you're always answering people's questions. Would you like to work for us? So I had been a moderator for their group during this time and got like free coaching services. And then I decided I'm going to become a coach myself. So I got certified as a nutrition and personal trainer because everything kept getting more expensive throughout this whole process. And although they do give you raises on Social Security, it was not enough to keep up with the costs the way they went up after COVID. Like I did fine before then, and then I started getting really poor, okay, really, really poor. And so I was like, I need to make money. So I was like, I can do this coaching online. Well, when I did the personal trainer certification, I learned all about fascia, and I learned that like the NFL, they do all these specific fascia things to heal people's injuries. And I was like, my bum shoulder, I'm going to try this fascia stuff, right? So I got fascia balls, and I started like just really going in on that and doing a lot of yoga. Also during this time, I ended up having to move out of my house because like my furnace went out and my septic system went out, and also like my house got hit with a baby tornado, and I couldn't afford the repairs, and I couldn't fix it because I couldn't even wash my hair, okay? And nobody would help me. And I went to this charity where like they help disabled people with their houses, but it was like a 4-year waiting list. I was like, I can't live without like water for 4 years. So I sent my kids to live with their dad, and I moved into renting this room. And while I was renting this room, I was like, this is the worst situation I've ever been in. I have to get well. So I just every day yoga for like hours with this fascia ball. I'm like, I'm gonna fix my shoulder. I am gonna get my shoulder back to where it started. And I would like work for hours and hours and hours a day trying to get my shoulder back and like stretching my hips and doing all these things. And then one day I felt this huge pop in my back. It honestly felt like my hips rotated 180 degrees, which is obviously impossible. So I don't really know what happened, but my entire body changed that day. It was something in my lower back, okay? And it just like rolled into place. And then like all my pain went away and everything I was just back in place. Like that was what was wrong with me. My shoulder moved again. Like I could stand up straight. My hips moved. So I went and started applying for jobs. Unfortunately, I hadn't paid for my license plate during this time because I didn't have the money to register my license plate. And I got 2 tickets while I was applying for jobs, or 3. And I had already had a ticket before that for like not having a license plate sticker. And so then they gave me a misdemeanor. One of them was literally in the parking lot where I got hired. Anyway, so I got hired at this place as a server. I'd never been a server before, but I thought serving would be a good test of like if I was actually well enough to move around because you're on your feet all day, but also it's kind of shorter shifts and you can get tips. So I thought about it, and I went to I lived near this rich town that was kind of far away from where most people live. And I was like, I bet like those places, who goes and serves there? Like the people who live in that town aren't going to be servers. And so I'll go, and it was really easy to get a job there. And they did tip really well. It was all like upper middle class Gen X there. And I averaged like 30% on tips, and it was like a higher price place. So, but they were slow. They were kind of slow, but I would still, I would get like $30 an hour serving. So it was fine. Sorry, I'm rambling now, but like, it's a long story, okay? So this is 2023. I'm serving, I'm better, and I'm like choo, and then they were stealing our tips, and I kind of complained about it, and I was like, they were doing other stuff, and I complained about it, and they fired me, okay? And then when I tried to go, I was gonna picket the restaurant to try to get like the money that they had stolen. They closed the entire restaurant. And I had just moved out of the place where I was renting a room, because where I was renting a room, there was this creepy guy who like cut a hole in the bathroom door and like kept trying to watch me in there. And he had a gun, and so I was like trying to get out of that house. So I had rented this place that was way too expensive, but it was the first place that would let me in. And now I didn't have a job, and now I was back to just getting Social Security disability, and my rent was like 75% of that. So I missed 1 month because it was December right before Christmas, and like it was hard to get a job, and they gave me an eviction notice 3 days before Christmas. So then, because I was sleeping in my car for a while after that, like my health kind of went back down again, because all that stuff that I straightened out got kind of like messed up again sleeping in my car. So now I've been in this apartment and I'm doing well. Okay, but I've only had furniture for not that long, and now I'm able to straighten myself back out again. Anyway, during this time, I was also learning astrology because I thought it was fake, and I was trying to prove that it was fake. I actually ended up proving it was real, and then kind of stumbled into working as an astrologer. So yeah, that's what I'm doing now. And because I want to teach people about how to get well like I did, but I don't want to charge them money for it, because like sick people don't have money. So I just do other stuff. All right, I'm just gonna end it here. This is still a little bit of a work in progress. I have a lymphedema from when I had surgery that I'm still trying to drain. They say it's impossible to cure lymphedema. They said it was impossible to do a lot of things. They said my kidney and livers were, I totally skipped the part where my kidney and liver were shutting down. Oh well, there was enough in there. I think you get the picture. I probably missed a lot of things. Okay, but yeah, my face is just, it's not going to be cleared up with like a pad, because the thing is, even when I do good skincare and clear up my face in a week, it gets like this again, because it's my gut that's causing the problems with my face. See? Okay. I'm just going to post this unedited raw, because I'm not watching that hour back to edit that. You deal with this mess. Like and subscribe.